name is Babs. My channel is called Manifest with Babs. And welcome to my channel. I am a manifesting coach. You can book sessions on my website, www.manifestwithbabs.com. So the reason why I'm laughing right now is because I just started the first video, the video take, with clapping and yelling into the camera, and I don't know why I did that. I was just excited. All right, today I wanted to talk about thinking about the manifestation less. So there's two versions. There is the version where you notice that you're thinking about it less, and there's the version where you don't notice that you're thinking about it less, or you might barely notice it. So let's start with the one where you notice and it's so obvious that you're not thinking about it. This could be because you don't want to think about it. If you don't really want to think about it, or you're avoiding, or kind of just like, nah, I don't need to think about it right now. If any of that sounds familiar, then it might be because you have resistance and or attachment in place that you haven't addressed. That's why I teach the 4 steps. You can manifest anything, anyhow. You don't have to do it right. I have lots of videos about that stuff and beliefs changing and all of that. But let's assume that you're doing the 4 steps, or you haven't done the 4 steps. And maybe the 4 steps just give you a little bit of structure. I like them because they can kind of remind me to address all of the steps. And you don't have to do it perfectly. You just want to do it at least once and go through it a little bit and go, oh yeah, I've done it. I've done my job. Nothing has to be ever done perfectly. There's a whole nother video about that. So you go back to step 1. Do step 1, 2, 3, 4. Do all of them. There's a video about it on my channel. Please look it up. But the steps are in place for a reason, because they work. Even in natural manifesting, where you're not deliberately doing it, these steps pop up. You just don't notice them because you're putting a lot less actual focus on it, right? So this is purposefully manifesting something. Definitively, it's like, no, I want this. I want to work through this. Use the 4 steps that I have. So when you're doing the 4 steps, I want you to do all of them. You don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to do it all the time. Just do it once or twice or 3 times, however many times you want. But if you're thinking about the manifestation less, it's an indication that you don't want to think about it, because there could be some resistance and attachment or attachment in place. So this is why we often avoid thinking about it. It's not because you're in alignment. It's when you catch yourself trying to avoid thinking about it, that's usually resistance and or attachment. So that's the one option. Then solution is you go do the 4 manifesting steps that I teach, or 3 manifesting steps. It could be step 1, focus. Step 2, release resistance. Step 3, detach. You can skip step 2 if you want. But there's at least 3 steps that I teach you, and they work really well, and they kind of give you structure and make you feel like, yeah, I kind of am doing it right. I think I'm doing it right. So if you're catching yourself trying not to think about your manifestation, it's probably because of step 2 or 3, or 3 and 4, depending how many steps you follow. It's resistance and or attachment. So you just work through them. You focus on it the way you focus on it, however you want to do it, however you do your focus work, it's right. However it resonates with you, that's right? And then you just address step 3 and 4, or 2 and 3 if you're skipping step 2, right? And then the other version is, if you're thinking about it less, and sometimes you notice it, but the reason why you might be thinking about it less is because you're starting to align with it. The more you actually do the 4 steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4, or steps 1, 3, 4, and you skip step 2, and now you're 1, 2, 3. The more you do these steps, the more you work through resistance, releasing it, changing these stories, accepting the emotions around it, and the more you detach, the better you feel, and the less you actually think about your manifestation, and you're starting to do you more. Actually, the biggest indication of detaching is you're starting to do you more, who you are, what you like. You're starting to be more alive. You're not constantly hung up on thinking about the manifestation. Why isn't it here yet? If you're wondering what the point is of, hey, what's the point of knowing I have it on the inside, but it's never going to show it up on the outside? that's most likely attachment. I had someone in my Facebook group mention that. She said, hey, what is the point of me doing these 4 steps? And I know I already have it on the inside and I feel it to be true on the inside, but it's not ever going to show up on the outside. That means you're not believing that you're going to be okay no matter what. That is detachment. Knowing that you're going to be okay no matter what. You don't need this. That's attachment if you think about it that way. So if you're doing the 4 steps, and the more you do them and you work through it, the less you automatically think about your manifestation. That's amazing because now you have time to do you. Clean out the house, go out with your friends, read more, do more hikes. I don't know what you like to do. Maybe you'll find new things you like to do. So the more you do the 4 steps, the less you think about the manifestation, because the more you're working through the steps, the more you're starting to align with it. Alignment isn't just being not aligned and aligned. Usually it's gradual as you're working through a story. Even if there's just one story keeping you from your manifestation, it doesn't just pop up. Usually it's like 10 to 14 days where it then shows up for real. Often when we start aligning, we start getting, for example, working through, this is always the greatest example because this is when I learned how to manifest, and I manifested this guy back after 5.5 months. And first it started that he actually did something I manifested in the summertime, and then a couple days later he did something else that I imagined, and then he started contacting me. So it starts gradually coming in as you're aligning. Things often slowly come in. They don't always come in full force. Sometimes and oftentimes they come in gradually, because that's how you want to imagine it. When you're working through these stories, they clear out. They don't clear out from 1 minute to the next. You're starting to loosen up. You're starting to shake things up and loosen things up, and you're breaking down that wall of resistance and attachment. And as you're slowly taking down the bricks of that wall, this is how my coach taught me, right? You're making more room for the new stuff. So it's gradually coming in. Things don't usually come in boom all at once. They gradually come in. As the story clears out, more and more comes in. As the attachment goes away, you're seeing more and more movement. It's over days or weeks, like 10 days, 14 days, right? So remember that it's not usually instant. It's very rare that I get something instant. I mean, I've gotten it with Amazon packages where I'm like, no, I know this package said it's going to be here. I took a walk, and 40 minutes later, the package was on my front door, because now it had said, before I left on the walk, it said, oh, it'll be here Monday. And it was Friday. I'm like, no, it said it was going to be here. So I released that last little bit of frustration and detached, because I didn't need it. It was okay if it was going to be there one day, and boom, when I came back, it was there. So that can be seen as instant, but that's a fairly small manifestation. With bigger things like job, person, etc., it's very gradual, and you're starting to see it come in more and more, and things are moving more, and things are moving more. But my point is, the more you do the 4 steps, the more you release resistance and detach, the more you're starting to align, and the less you think about the manifestation. Hooray! So, version number 2 is where you maybe catch yourself, oh, I haven't thought about it in weeks. That's when you also know you are starting to align more. But if you usually when you catch yourself not thinking about it, it is still that you usually have resistance or attachment in place. It's okay. You're just working through it. It's a process. It's not all at once. I need to have it right now. That's usually attachment, right? And attachment is okay, because you can have what you want even when you're attached. But attachment usually makes us feel stressed, and it makes us think about the manifestation a lot, and we're not okay with that. We want that and nothing else. That is usually attachment. We're not okay with anything else but that. So just remember that. And usually when something doesn't come in, it's because we're not letting it in. No one has control but you. You're the only one in control in this. So if it hasn't come in, it's because your subconscious, your higher you, your inside you, whatever you want to call it, source, God, universe, you asked for something, and it says you have to do your homework. Like, you want the solution to the problem, right? You want this certain relationship with a certain person. You want to feel a certain way, and you want certain results in that relationship. And the universe says, that's great, I will give you everything, but you have to work through this belief and that belief, and you want to detach, because attachment usually comes from a belief or a story or a fear or a doubt. So the universe is just saying, hey, you might not be ready yet because you still have that one or two things that you want to work on because you asked for something and I'm going to give it to you. That's your higher you. I'm going to give it to you, but you want to work through this. It's not anyone else denying it but yourself. You are the universe. You are source. You're part of it. We're all one. We're all connected. So see everything as you. Everything is you. That's why there is Amanda saying everyone is you pushed out. Because it is. If something hasn't come in, it's because you're not ready. Because you haven't addressed that resistance with the story, doubt, whatever, or the attachment. So also attachment, that's when you feel really good, when you start detaching. And detaching, you start initiating it by what's saying step 4, I want it, I don't need it, right? But it's usually a certain moment when you go through this, it almost feels like a breakup. You're breaking up with it and you're like, I don't need this. This is so stupid. I don't need it at all. I'm going to be totally fine. And you might get all attitude-y or whatever. And you're kind of breaking up with it over a day or two and it can take 1 to 3 days to detach, but you usually know. And usually afterwards you feel so good. It feels like this weight got lifted off of you and you feel a lot less stress. And that's the biggest change, where you start thinking, or you stop thinking about it so much, is usually detaching. And then you still want to do resistance work, obviously. And remind yourself that you don't need it, because you can always get attached again. You don't maybe have to do it as much anymore, right? So either you know that you're avoiding thinking about it, you don't want to think about it, that's resistance and attachment, or you're noticing, hey, I haven't thought about it in weeks. But if you notice that, then you might still have something in place that's a little bit bugging you and you want to work through it. Your higher you wants you to work through it. So as usually, if you notice that you're not thinking about it, you still have some sort of resistance or attachment in place that your higher you wants you to work through. Think about it as you want this. Yeah, I want the manifestation, but I also want it to show up a certain way. This is what people tend to forget. We want it so bad, but we also want it to show up a certain way and not any other way. And if you want to have it that way, the universe heard you. You just want to work through this. You're doing this for you, not for anyone else, and no one else has control but you. So what I wanted to reiterate is, as you're working through the 4 steps, you're detaching, you are working on releasing resistance, which is changing beliefs, stories, doubts, fears, right? You are going to think about it less and less. And that's also meaning that you are now aligning with it more and more. And over time, things are going to start coming in. Other little manifestations might be coming in more. That's when you know, hey, you're doing it right. Because old energy shows you, hey, this is going the opposite direction. Again, old energy, I call it old energy. It's detox, shadow work, the old story repeating, whatever you want to call it. But I call it old energy. Old energy is usually the longest lasting in any belief work or manifesting work, and it looks like the opposite is happening of what you actually want, but that means you're doing it right. And then as you're doing it more and more and more, and the old energy clears out more and more, new things come in, such as little other manifestations that you've been wanting, little unimportant things, but now they mean a lot because they're actually coming in. So that's how you know you're starting to align. You don't know that you're in alignment until it actually shows up. If you know that you're in alignment, my coach taught me, and she's been right, and I've been right, and I've experienced it. If you know that you're in alignment, you're probably stuck on step 2 or 3. There is a resistance in place that you haven't addressed. If you're convinced you're in alignment, you're not. Most likely. I have never known when I'm in alignment other than it showed up. That's how I know I'm in alignment. It showed up. There's no indication other than maybe things are starting to come in, but that's, even if little manifestations come in, don't tell yourself, oh my God, I'm doing it right, I'm going to get what I want. Because that is, you're going back into attachment, right? Oh my God, this is great. I don't know if it's going to come in, but that would be great. That is you detaching. There. I hope this video helped. Have a great day.